Most people kind of just follow the rules. They're looking for approval, they care about where they fit in, but psychology points to this really rare group of people who just opt out. They completely reject that traditional hierarchy, and they're often called the Sigma male.
So, let me ask you something right off the bat. Do you feel like you're living life completely, 100% on your own terms? I ask because that question, well, it's the absolute heart of the psychological profile we're going to break down right now. And this just nails the central conflict, doesn't it? Over on one side, you've got the standard social ladder, a game all about getting approval, chasing status, and just doing what the crowd does. But on the other side, a totally different path, one that's all about autonomy, freedom, and your own personal values. The Sigma profile lives almost entirely on this second path.
So how does this actually show up in someone's personality? Well, our first big area dives right into that. It's this fundamental rejection of the hierarchy, and it's all fueled by this incredible drive for independence. So the first, and you could argue the most important trait, is that independence is everything. It's not just a preference. For this personality type, personal freedom is the ultimate prize. Psychologists actually have a term for this. They call it autonomy-seeking behavior. And what's so interesting is how it plays out in real life. It means you're the kind of person who might switch careers, or decide to travel the world alone, or maybe skip a big family event. Not because you're trying to be a rebel, but just because it genuinely lines up with your own internal goals.
And that flows perfectly into our second trait. See, if freedom is your main goal, you can't be tied down by what other people think. It means you just don't need pats on the back from others to feel good about yourself.
This quote gets right to the heart of it. Your sense of value comes from what you do, from your actions, not from the applause you get. And here's the kicker. There's a huge psychological payoff here. Research actually shows that people with this mindset experience way less stress and feel more satisfied with their lives, mainly because their self-worth isn't bouncing around based on what other people happen to think that day.
Okay, so this independence isn't just about what you value, it actually shapes how you think. And that brings us to our second key area, a way of thinking that's all about noticing the things that everybody else misses.
So, trait number 3 is this habit of patient observation. While a lot of people might just jump right into a situation, you're the one who tends to hang back, stay quiet, and just watch.
Now, this isn't about being passive. It's a skill that psychologists call heightened situational awareness. It's the ability to pick up on those tiny details, a flicker in someone's eyes, a pattern in a conversation that no one else catches. This gives you a massive advantage, letting you sidestep problems and make much smarter moves when you finally decide to act.
This sharp outward focus is really powered by a very rich inner world. So for our third section, we're going to turn inward and look at how this personality type handles things like energy, focus, and relationships.
Trait number 4 is a big one. For this kind of person, being alone isn't a bad thing at all. It's actually where you recharge your batteries. Solitude is fuel, not a punishment.
Psychologically speaking, this is a super powerful tool for what's called emotional regulation. You use this quiet time to process your thoughts, to plan, to really get your head straight. And what's really fascinating is that studies show this habit often leads to way higher levels of creativity and an amazing ability to tackle really complex problems. So what about a social life? Does this mean they're a total loner? Not at all. And this is where our 5th trait comes in, and it really busts that whole lone wolf myth. The need for solitude doesn't mean isolation. It means you'd rather have a few very deep, genuine connections. This says it all, right? It's quality over quantity every single time. You basically filter out all the superficial noise to focus on friendships that are real and authentic. And again, the science backs this up. Having these kinds of meaningful bonds leads to a much greater sense of resilience and overall happiness in life. Now, all of these things we've talked about, the independence, the observation, the deep connections, they're all powered by a really unique way of seeing the world. For our final section, we're going to look at what truly makes this mindset different, the power of an unconventional mind. Now, to really get the last few traits, you first have to understand how most people solve problems. It usually looks something like this. You spot a problem, you apply a solution that's worked before, and you try to get everyone to agree. It's safe, it's predictable, it works. Sometimes. But trait number 6 is about throwing that whole playbook out the window. Instead of walking the same old path, this personality uses something called divergent thinking to come up with solutions that are completely new and unexpected. Psychologists see this as a huge sign of our 7th trait,
high cognitive flexibility. And it's driven by the eighth and final trait, which is really the engine behind it all. It's this innate ability to question everything, to push back against how it's always been done, and ultimately, to find these brilliant solutions and hidden opportunities that are totally invisible to a more conventional way of thinking.
So when you put all 8 of these traits together, what do you really have? It's not about being the loudest person in the room or being in charge. It's about a kind of quiet power, a power that comes from truly, deeply understanding yourself.
And look, this isn't about feeling like you're better than anyone else. The philosophy at its core is actually pretty simple. Fiercely protect your personal freedom. Build connections that actually mean something. Think for yourself. And move through the world with a quiet sense of control that doesn't need a spotlight to feel valid.
And that kind of brings us to one last question for you to think about. After hearing all this, which one of these psychological traits really hit home for you? Which one made you say, yeah, that's me? Whether it's just one or all of them, it's a pretty interesting thing to reflect on.